Hello, everyone, and welcome to our peer-to-peer sessions, the pros and cons of gallery representation with Alison Wells. My name is Hendrik Hernandez Resto. I am the creative specialist at New Bedford Creative. Thank you for joining us today. Before I go any further, please enter your first and last name in the chat, along with your email for our records. Thank you. This peer-to-peer session is geared to enrich, educate, and connect creatives within our community. New Bedford is the home of artists, creatives, changemakers, designers, entrepreneurs, and community enthusiasts. The peer-to-peer sessions embraces the pulse that makes New Bedford so unique while also expanding our knowledge and connections. New Bedford Creative offers many opportunities for artists and cultural organizations. Join our creative directory, apply for our grants or call for arts, list your event on our calendar, all for free, at our website, newbedfordcreative.org. Peer-to-peer sessions is supported in part by the City of New Bedford through the American Rescue Plan Award and Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund, facilitated by New Bedford Creative at the New Bedford Economic Development Council. We would like to thank our mayor, John Mitchell, his administration, and the entire New Bedford City Council for their continued support of the creative sector. This is just one component of a broader initiative to boost arts-based economic development and help the creative sector recover from the pandemic. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to go over the format for this session. Once I'm done, I will pass it over to Alison. Once Alison is finished, we will open up for Q&A. I will review the questions in the chat first, and then we will continue with the Q&A live. We have about 20 minutes for questions, so we can wrap up on time by 2 p.m. Just so everyone is aware, this session will be recorded. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat so we don't miss them when we open up for Q&A. Most sessions throughout this series have been recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel at New Bedford Creative in the following week. I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Alison, who will teach us all the pros and cons of having gallery representation. I will now pass it over to Alison to share more details of who she is, what she will present for us today. Alison, go for it. I am muting myself now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. New Bedford Creative, Margot, thank you, Margot and Hendrik and all of their team over at New Bedford Creative. It has been wonderful. I've done a few of these now, and I'm so excited to come and talk about my passions. All of the things we've been talking about are things that I do in my everyday business. That is my life and my passion. So I'm so happy to be able to talk to other people about it. So today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of gallery representation. And, you know, there are many different views on this. And so I'm taking it from a lot of the experience I've had in dealing with galleries. For those who don't know, I'm Alison Wells. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I live here in New Bedford, Massachusetts. I'm an artist, an abstract, semi-abstract artist, and an art educator. And I love to teach and to paint and anything art and business and marketing and all of the above. That's why it lights me right up. And I'm also the owner of Alison Wells Fine Arts Studio and Gallery in New Bedford, Massachusetts. So I'm going to go right ahead and share my screen and begin. Okay, pros and cons of gallery representation. Okay, so a lot of it is lessons I've learned through the years, but we want to talk about the things that work well with gallery representation and things that don't always work as well. So gallery representation can provide significant benefits to artists. However, it also comes with some challenges and potential drawbacks. Okay, so we're going to start with with the pros. If a gallery is honest and hardworking, and I stress that, an artist can have a positive and rewarding experience being represented and exhibited through a gallery. And there have been galleries I've shown at and have been represented with that I've had good experiences with. So we're going to talk about some of those pros. Okay, so exposure and credibility, increase visibility. Galleries have established networks and regular visitors, which can significantly increase an artist's exposure. So definitely, if you're showing at a gallery or they're representing your work is in this gallery. So whoever's coming into the gallery, especially if they're a reputable gallery and they have quite a list of collectors and people who are aware of the art scene and the art world, your work is going to be visible to them. Better than your work being in a basement somewhere or in your studio. Not all the time people can come and visit your studio, depending if it's in your house, or your studio might be in your living room or whatever. But when you start showing your work out there, your work becomes visible, and people can see your work and know more about you and your artwork. Also, credibility and validation. Being represented by a reputable gallery can increase an artist's credibility in the art world, which is so true, because sometimes people might come up to me and say, oh, I've seen your work at this gallery or that gallery, and it gives you a little bit of credibility. And also, when you keep doing that, you can also put it on your resume. So when somebody's looking at a resume, whether it's for a job or you have your resume on your website, people can see, oh, they're shown at this gallery and that gallery. They have experience with showing their work, selling their work. People are interested in their work. So exposure and credibility are very important. Exhibition opportunities. Okay, some galleries organize solo and group exhibitions, increasing the artist's portfolio and public engagement. Now, this doesn't happen for all. And when I talk about representation, I'm talking in terms of you sign a contract with a gallery for a certain number of years or whatever, where that gallery represents you. They sell your work. They are, in charge of the sales and organization and everything of your work. However, I also loosely include showing at galleries, because even though it's not a big representation, they are still representing your work, maybe for a short space of time, for the duration of the exhibit itself. So you might be in a gallery in a group show or a solo show, and it might be for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So you are still under a certain amount of contract for that, but there are different stipulations which you need to know about. But anyway, but in terms of if a gallery is representing you on a large scale, sometimes in the contract, they might offer you an exhibition every year, every 2 years. I had a gallery when I was still in Trinidad before I moved here that represented my work. And it actually started off with me. There was my very first gallery where I showed, very new to the art world. And I showed with an organization called the Women in Art in Trinidad. And the great thing about being part of organizations is that sometimes these organizations have connections with galleries. So they were able to get a show every year for the organization. So every year, once I was in that organization, I was able to show my work in this group show. And the curator, the owner of the gallery, loved my work. And so one year invited me to do a 2-person show. That went well. I sold a lot of work. And so they invited me to represent my work. And what that entails is that they showed my work, they sold it, and I also was able to have a solo exhibition like every 2 years. And so that felt really good, because then you're not like all over the place trying to find and piece together different galleries and who's going to sell this and who's going to sell that. You feel like you're taken care of. Now, that doesn't always happen, and things have changed a lot in the market, but that's one, pro for some galleries that do that. Now, not all galleries do that. I had a gallery up here that represented my work, and they didn't offer exhibition opportunity. And mainly because they had so many artists, to the point where you go into the gallery and it's like ceiling to floor of artwork, and which is fine. Many times you have a lot, but it's so much, sometimes your work is leaning on the walls and stuff like that. And so you're not getting that, you're getting exposure, but they're not giving that extra exhibition opportunity. But some galleries do this. Okay, another pro, sales and financial stability. And again, in the ideal world, if you have a gallery that represents you and they're doing well and they're selling your work on a consistent basis, then you get some sort of financial stability as money is coming in consistently. Okay, so galleries actively work to sell the artist's work, often to high-end collectors and institutions, providing a more stable income. Okay, so again, this doesn't apply to all galleries. You know, if you find a gallery that works for you and this is what they do, that's an excellent feeling, right? It's a really good feeling that you're being taken care of, and there's an understanding and an honesty, and they have to be this back and forth kind of communication. Okay, it cannot be one-sided at all. So if in a good situation, sales and financial stability would definitely be a pro. Pro number 4, networking. Galleries can introduce artists to influential collectors, curators, and other artists, which is very true. When you go to art openings, your work is on the wall, you meet new people, you meet collectors that might be interested in your work, and you're putting yourself out there as an artist. So more people know of your name, more people know of your art, and they keep looking out for you. So that is all part of the networking. It's very important. And I know some of us as artists, we'd rather just hide away in our studio, right? But we have to make that effort to make that networking. We cannot always rely on the galleries. If in the perfect world, a gallery would network for you and market for you and do everything, and you can hide away in your studio. But these days, you really cannot. You have to do that networking. Also, being part of a gallery's roster can lead to collaborations with other artists and institutions. And this has happened to me before, where I've met other artists in group shows, and then we've gone on to collaborate and do other things together. So it is a way of networking, okay? And some of you, if you've shown at galleries, they may not have represented your work, but you've shown with them in different shows, you know that this networking is very important. You know, many times you've met different artists, you've met collectors, you've met curators, and really expanded your world. So it is a pro. Okay, so those are some of the pros. And now I'm going to go on to the cons of gallery representation. And so in a less than ideal situation with a gallery that is not fully committed or transparent, an artist may face some challenges. This may lead to potentially frustrating and unproductive experience. And so these are very, very important things that we need to think about. Okay. Number 1, high commissions and other fees. And first, before I get into this, I want to let you know, so these cons, pros and cons, these cons that I'm talking about can have some positive things. So I'm going to show you where it doesn't work well and where, if there's communication with your gallery and trust and honesty, that it could work well. So high commission and other fees. Galleries typically take a commission on sales, which can be as high as 50%, 60%. Now, think about it this way, you know, nothing is for free. If a gallery is working hard for you, they are honest, and you and them have a communication, you have gone through a contract, and we both know our roles, this can work. If it is that they are reputable, they are professional, they have a large mailing list, they know quite a few collectors who are willing to buy, art collectors, etc. And they're working for you, they're advertising for you and all of this. Yes, you need to give them a commission because they're working hard for you. You're not beating all over the place trying to do all of these things. So it makes sense. And the higher the percentage is the more they do for you. However, in some not as ideal situations, we have galleries that are demanding these high percentages and they're not doing the work. They are not representing you in the way they promise to be representing you. Your work, sometimes you go to the gallery and your work is not even on the walls. Or sometimes they're selling your work, but you're not getting any calls back for commission that they owe you. So these are things you have to be very aware of. how much work are they doing? How much are they taking from you, from the commission? So a commission is not a bad thing, right? You give them a commission. I'm willing to give a 50%, 60% if I know the gallery is working really hard for me. They're bringing in customers and collectors who are buying my art at full price. So that, you know, you really have to think about those things. Also, I wanted to note, not as simple as doubling your prices or having different prices. Keep your prices consistent. So sometimes people might think, oh, well, they're asking for 50%. I'm just going to double my price. It's not a problem, but it is a problem because sometimes you double your price and you're outselling the market. You know, it's way too high. So you're pricing yourself out of the market. When you think of the market in terms of other artists who are on your level, in terms of how long you've been doing this, how long you've been showing your work, selling your work, etc., the sizes of your pieces, all of that, you have to take that into consideration. So it's not as easy as just, oh, I'm just going to slap on another 50%. So if I have a painting for $1,000, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sell it for $2,000. And it's not as simple as that. And so many times, you know, you would see artists might do that, but you have to keep in mind, if you are represented by an artist, by a gallery, sorry, you want them to be honest with you, and you have to be honest with them. So in many cases, and this would be in the contract too, you have to keep your prices across the board. So you can't decide you are raising it 50%. So there you have a $1,000 piece in your studio or your home gallery or wherever you're selling on your own. And then you have a gallery and you're selling it for $2,000. So that is where, you know, you don't want that, because you want to be honest. You want them to be honest. So you have to be upfront. It might seem no brainer. I was like, I'll just raise it, but that's not the case. It should not be. So it should not be cheaper on your website or on your in your studio, and then another price 50% more in the gallery. So you have to think about that. If the gallery is asking for too much, you have to consider that and be like, well, maybe not, okay, unless you're willing to raise the prices across the board. And how would that go for you? Also, other fees, representation fees, exhibition fees. We have to be careful with this because sometimes there are galleries that charge artists to show, or charge artists exorbitant amounts for representation. And that really should not be. Sometimes they're charging artists high amounts for them to represent you or for you to show in the gallery, and then still take a commission. So you have to think about that. That something is not adding up. And I'm not talking about artist-run galleries or artist co-ops where artists come together and they open a gallery. That's a wonderful thing because now we're looking out for each other. We have to pay certain dues, etc., because we're coming together. But I'm talking about big galleries that are seeing artists as the cash cows, okay? And I've learned this term, and the term is a vanity gallery, not to be confused with artists that open their own galleries. So I've opened my own gallery, and when I opened it, it was mainly to sell my work, right? I've had some good experiences, but also some bad experiences with galleries. And I decided I wanted to show my own work. Okay, so I've done that. But these are galleries. So that's not a vanity gallery. In your mind, you might think, well, artists who open their own galleries are vanity gallery. People have asked me that before. And I've actually learned this from my professors at art school. And vanity galleries are galleries that actually go out to make their profit and their money from other artists rather than from collectors. So whenever you see a gallery is focused on the artist paying for everything, paying them for this, paying them for views or showing in their galleries, etc., you have to be very careful. Ask yourself, step back and think about it. Read the contracts carefully. An example again, I remember being, I went to UMass Dartmouth here, and I remember graduating and really gung-ho about getting into a gallery. So sometimes, a lot of people and how they see things. I thought that was my only option. And many times, some of my professors and some of my elders made me think that as well. And I don't blame them, because there was a time when that was our only outlet. And you remember, sometimes before even that, we had the internet. So we couldn't even show our work on websites or anywhere. There's no way. We were dependent on galleries. And so I still had that mentality. The gallery was the only way I was going to sell my artwork. And so I remember going to New York City with my packages, knocking on door to door of all of the galleries. You know, sometimes you don't get the best reception. You might just get shut out totally, but determined. And there was a gallery that was interested in me, and I left my information, and they wrote back to me. I was so excited. And they offered me a show, a solo show. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. And then I read the fine print on the contract, and it was that I had to pay them $1,200 for the show, a show for 1 month, or less than a month. And I also had to pay a commission on anything I saw. And I'm like, what? And I remember speaking to one of my ex-professors, and like, that is a good example of a vanity gallery that's taking advantage of the artist and just taking money from the artist rather than making the money from the commissions and from collectors. So be very, very careful about things like that. Fees, hidden fees, all of that. And if you have a gallery that represents you and they're doing well, they're doing the work, and you're selling artwork, you know, a percentage is not a bad thing. Okay. Okay, con number 2, exclusive contracts, limited representation. Again, they're good and bad of these. So it depends on the communication and with the artist and the gallery. So exclusivity, limiting the artist's ability to sell their work independently or through other galleries, okay? So when you see something like this, you have to ask yourself, wait, so if they are limiting me and I can only sell through them, what happens? That means I cannot show in other places. It will also limit the view, so other people are not going to see my work, etc. So you have to think about those things carefully. You know, sometimes there are galleries that tell you that even if you're selling work in your studio or online, you have to give them a commission. So you have to decide, yes, that's okay if they're really working hard for you, or you don't want to do much work. There's some artists who rather not do the work. If you could just paint in a studio and you can have a gallery really represent you to the full, sell your work and all that, that's great. That actually is amazing. I would love that. But sometimes you are not going to find this. And if it happens, it doesn't happen for a long time because things change. So you have to think about that. Also, geographical limits. Being represented by a gallery in a specific location can limit exposure to other markets. It's true. And I have to say, you have to think about it and see what's reasonable. Now, many galleries do this, and I understand. Some of them might say, well, you cannot show it in a 40-mile radius or 50-mile radius, okay? Or if it's a small city within, like I live downtown New Bedford, the galleries that say that, you know, if I'm representing your work, you cannot be showing in other areas. And I do understand that, but you have to sit with yourself and say, well, do I want that or not? And sometimes if it is within a 40-mile radius, that's not bad at all. There are some galleries who say that you cannot show anywhere else, or maybe not in the entire state. So maybe in Massachusetts, you can't show in the whole of Massachusetts, but you can show in another state. Now you have to sit now and think, are they really going to work that hard for me that I cannot show anywhere else in the entire state? So for me, that was a no-no. Somebody else might say, okay, it works for me. Now I understand within the 50-mile radius or something like that. And I'll be like, okay, that's true. And then, you know, somewhere else. I signed a contract with a gallery that represented me, and it was in P-Town. P-Town was a small area. And so I was fine with that being the only one that could show my work in that area. So you have to ask yourself those questions. However, if they were to say, well, no, you cannot show your work outside of only in Massachusetts, only them within the entire state. If they told me that, it would have definitely be a no, thank you. Okay, this is not going to work for me. But if it's a small area and I'm like, okay, and you're working for me, that's fine. So it's really up to you. You have to sit and think about, does this work for you, or this is a hell no. So do not sign anything before reading all contracts. Consider having a lawyer look at it first as well. So a lot of little jargon, sometimes some of them might be tricky, so you want to read all the fine prints. You don't want to be in there and then suddenly you're getting slapped on the wrist like, why is your work showing here? Why are you showing it online? I need a commission from what you sold in open studios. That's a no-no for me. So you can get your commission, your big commission, 50%, 60%, if you're doing the work within your gallery, and I'm not showing in a 50-mile radius. However, if I'm showing out of my studio, I should be able to get my full amount. So you have to decide what works for you. Sometimes the communication is so good, you can sit and have that conversation and draw up the contract from that. Okay, con number 3, loss of control. Sometimes, so artist freedom. Artists may need to align their work with the gallery's vision or market demands. The need to create marketable work can sometimes stifle creativity and experimentation. There's some galleries that just love your work and they're like, oh yes, you can just explore, express yourself. Others, they do have a style. There are some galleries that have a certain sort of style. They have collectors who'd like a certain thing. And so they will lean toward that. Okay, so you have to know when you're going in. So I had gallery owners and curators come to my studio for studio visits, and they look at my work, and I have different like themes. My 2 major themes are my New Bedford themes, because I've been living here for 20 years, and my Caribbean themes. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. So, and I'm known for doing these women, which are called my totem ladies, my totem people. And they branch off into strong, grounded women in a semi-abstract way, head wraps, etc. And then have gone into like ancestors and stuff like that. And so there were certain curators that come in and they love that work right away. It fits with the style of work they have in the gallery. Maybe the works are very ethnic, etc. And so they want that. And I enter that contract with them knowing that's what they want. So I'm not then going to be showing them watercolor flowers or expect all of a sudden they're going to show that. So you have to know what is it that they're interested in. Now, I've had curators to also come in and they like when I experiment with new things and like, so what's new? What you show, you know? And they would see some new ones. They were like, not really, this is a good fit, but I like this, you know, explore this some more, whatever. And you have that communication. So, but if you feel that they are making too many of these demands, that can strain the relationship as well. So you have to be very careful about that. Decision-making. Galleries often have the final say in pricing, marketing, and exhibition details. And so again, communication, how they market your work, pricing. Now, pricing is a funny thing, and you have to go in understanding that. As I said, you may not want to be like just adding the amount of what the commission is on top of it. It will price you out of the market. And sometimes you'll have that kind of discussion. However, if you feel that a gallery is shortchanging you, constantly wanting you to drop your prices, and this has happened to me before, and my prices were not high. When you think about it, so after they take 50%, they've dropped your price and then take 50% onto that. You need to do the math. You have to calculate, wait, is this even covering my materials? And why am I doing this? Am I doing this? Well, maybe I'm doing it for a limited amount of time because I want my work out there. I want to make a name for myself, etc. You have to make that decision. But how long can that go on for? You know, I've had a curator constantly want to drop my prices, and I gave in. I was new to it. And I remember feeling very resentful, very hurt. It's not a good feeling. So you sell the work, especially when you're selling the work. So the work is going fast. And that is where I'm saying you want to think about the gallery and do they have your interest at heart? Sadly enough, there are many who do not. They see artists as just a commodity and I'm going to make money from them. Really not thinking about if they are trying to make money for you as well. So it's all about making the money from the artist. And you have to pick that up from day one. Because it's such a sad feeling because we are energetic, we're full of energy, we want to be out there, we want to sell our work. And especially if you don't know, you will give in to bad habits. And I gave into a lot. I'm like, okay, I trust them. And so I just kept feeling like, oh my gosh, less and less is coming in, especially when you see your work being sold. And you're getting less, but they are getting more. So you have to really think about, is this working for me? Again, pay attention to the contracts. Ask as many questions as you need to. Okay, on number 4, pressure to produce. And sometimes you see this, especially in the bigger galleries. An artist might be blowing up, they might be popular, even in the smaller galleries. And you know, you might make certain things. Maybe you make 3-dimensional stuff that's just going off the rack. And the gallery owner, the curator is like, oh, you need to make more of this, make more of that. And it puts a pressure. And you know, all of us different, and there's so many different artists and so many different types of work you can show in galleries. And for many of you showing your work in the gallery, you might have experienced this too, you know, a pressure of, if you're doing well as an artist, constantly having to produce the same thing. Or maybe they're telling you, please don't experiment. We need X amount of this, X amount of that. And it feels good in the beginning because you're making money and you're like, oh my gosh, people are loving my work. But then you feel like there's such a pressure over you from the gallery. It's constantly. And then the quality of your work might go down, you know, authenticity of your work might go down. And then you started to look at your work and be like, well, this is not my best work, or this really felt rushed or whatever. You know, there was a situation that I had a gallery, and it was the first time I heard this. And it makes sense because remember, they're business people. They're out to make money and we're the artists. So we have to meet them where they're at and we have to think about things. We can't just jump in because we so want to be shown. And so this situation I had, I was doing quite well, selling work. And then the curator called me in, we had a meeting and he said, we need you to do more blue paintings. All of your blue paintings are selling. People love the blues. Do more blues. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember like, oh my God, the paintings are selling. I feel good. And I started to do more blue paintings. And something was just slowly dying in me, you know, when I have to do blue paintings to sell. So something else starts to take over and it doesn't feel good. And then when you're forcing it, the work doesn't look good. It doesn't feel. So you have to think about that. You know, if it reaches a point where it's pressured, because we all want to be successful. We all want to make money from our art. And when we do, how do we feel? Is there anything going on that starts making you feel sleazy about the work? So you have to talk about that and be very upfront. Con number 5, reliance and dependence on a gallery. Okay, dependence. Artists may become too dependent on their gallery for sales and exposure, making them vulnerable if the relationship ends. And guess what? Many times the relationship does end because they might be a new it artist online, somebody new and fresh and young and with new ideas. When you've been doing all the blue paintings for years on end, right? And then immediately they're like, okay, bye, on to the next. What do you do then? When you were making money from the gallery was taking care of you, and suddenly you're off on your own, okay? Also, many times now, because there's so much competition, we have online, artists have so many different options that I knew I did not have. And because we are doing that, we are not as gullible and reliant on the gallery scene as the be end and be all. What's that saying? Be end and be all. Anyway, the gallery is not number one. Okay, so we have all these different options. And so we have to be careful that we're not in a situation like that, because there are many galleries that are closing. Many. I mean, so many have closed since the pandemic even. And before that, commercial galleries. A lot of the galleries that are going on strong now are many artist-run galleries, or artist corp galleries that we look out for each other. Okay, and so you have to be careful about that, being too dependent, because when you're off on your own, what happens? Reliance on the gallery's collectors. Gallery retains collectors' information, preventing them from being follow-up customers once you have left the gallery. This is, this strikes so many chords in me, and I'm very passionate about it. And I gave a talk a few weeks back, 2 weeks, about my email list is gold. You need to start an email list of your collectors, people that are interested in your art. They may not have bought anything of you, but they are your fans, your followers, your well-wishers, because one day they will become collectors. You never know. You need to build. You cannot rely on a gallery because they're selling and all of that. Because what happens when the gallery closes? What happens when they find a new it artist? Guess what? They are not giving you the list of the collectors who've bought your work. Now, maybe in a smaller gallery, if you have an understanding with them or whatever, maybe they might. I have galleries who've given me contacts for the collector, or many times the collector loves your work so much, they get your contact. And that's why if the gallery doesn't give them your contact, it's important. You have a website, you have somewhere, an email, you have information on a card. They can look you up. That's why you need to have that. You need that buffer. You cannot depend on them fully. And some of the larger galleries will not give you that information at all, because why would they? They're a business, right? They're the middleman. So they give that information. Guess what? The collector can come straight to you and leave them out. So that is such a point, a very important point, because when I learned that, I fell out with a gallery, and well, I didn't realize I fell out. I asked for that, and they were, dodging. They had all these excuses about how they couldn't give me the information of who bought, because somebody had bought like more than one piece, like 3 pieces, large ones too. I wanted to know who the artists were, or can I have a connection? Maybe I could say thank you or whatever. And they did not want that. And I pestered them about it, and then they came up with something, but I never got it. But I didn't realize that I stepped on toes. And so in going back to have another show, they totally ghosted me. So they totally ghosted me because I guess I stepped out of line asking for that. Maybe that's a no-no for artists to ask, but think about that. Think about all of these people have bought your work over the years through a gallery, and they cannot contact you. You have no way of contacting them. Oh, I have a new body of work. Oh, I'm doing this, or whatever it is. So it feels like, you need to protect yourself. You need to have your own list. So you have to be careful not to be dependent. You still have to have your independence. So when you've decided that maybe it doesn't work for you, I decided it didn't work for me, having gallery representation. And all of this time, I started to slowly build and build and build my collectors and my email list. Your email list is gold. And so that's why I give that talk, because it goes hand in hand. You have to be self-sufficient. Okay, con number 6, selection and competition. Getting gallery representation can be highly competitive, with many artists vying for limited spots. And I think sometimes when that happens, the galleries feel like they're in a position where we are so desperate as artists that they can, pick and choose, or they can change things in the contracts that are not very favorable and not on our side, you know, high commission rates, and at the same time lowering our prices, not paying us on time. I mean, I've had situations where I haven't been paid for a whole year. And these in the beginning when I'm young. So when I'm new to showing artwork straight out of school. So I'm telling you these things because I have been burnt and I've learned my lesson. So if it's new to you, you have to have all your P's and Q's together. You need to be professional. They need to know that you're professional. The sad thing is that we've gotten a rap. Artists has gotten a rap to being, we're so relaxed. We're not professional. We don't have all our stuff in order, you know. You ask them for a artist statement, they don't have that, or maybe they just have something written, scribbled, or they don't know where the paintings are. Oh, I think I have work here, I think I have work there, and whatever. And that happens, but you cannot fall into that stereotype. They think that, but as soon as you start showing you are professional and you are on your game, you can see who is going to be honest and who's not going to be honest. Because immediately when they know that you have everything on, they step back and realize, oh, well, I can't pull the wool over their eyes. Or I can't use this whole, like, well, I have lots of artists banging on the door. So you have to be careful about all of that. Open your eyes. I remember a situation where I had a curator come to a studio visit and they came to look for more work, but they were bringing the work that didn't sell. So they sold a good amount and they had a few pieces that didn't sell, about 6 or 7, and they brought that back. And they did not know I had all of that information logged. So as I got work back, I ticked it off, I ticked it off, I ticked it off. I looked at the check, I see how many things sold, what I get after the commission. All of that was on mine. They didn't expect me to be so professional and know these numbers because they were missing a painting. And when I said that, they suddenly were confused. What you mean? I had the picture of the painting, I had the name of the painting. It wasn't on what they gave me that they sold. And then like, oh, we have to make some calls. And over, month after month, contacting. Suddenly, oh, they didn't realize that, you know, that piece had sold or whatever. So they sold and they didn't pay for me. They didn't pay me, but they gave me back a short of one. So that's why, and maybe if we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, they had a lot of artists, maybe they made a mistake. But that's where you cannot make the mistake. That's why you have to be on top of everything. How many pieces you gave them? What are the prices of the pieces? What is the commission? How many that's out? Because it comes and goes. They return pieces, they take more pieces. You have to be on point. And every time they take more pieces, you need to sign an agreement. Okay, so you have to be careful because there's so many artists vying for the same thing. Sometimes some galleries can try to pull the wool over your eyes. So you have to go in very aware. Okay, and to the end of my presentation, after all of that said, remember you have options. Gallery representation is just one option. And it's a great one. If you have, I've had really good, I am not bashing it. I've had really good experiences with galleries, and I've had very poor ones as well, where it left me feeling very hurt, taken advantage of, you know, like they just thought it was so easy to fool us. So we have to be aware of those things. It's only one option. And so even though you may not have a gallery representing you, and you are showing at different galleries, same thing. You need to be on board with the contract for that space of time. If you're showing in a show, you have a solo show, or let's say a group show, and it's for 3 weeks, they are representing you for the 3 weeks, not beyond that. I had a situation where I did a solo exhibition for somebody. We had a contract just for that. And we did really good. I got the commission, all of that, everything was squared. And then I realized that gallery was advertising that they were representing me. And, and then I'm like, wait a minute. No, but you're not, because we didn't sign a contract for that. And also wanting to demand money that I made through my gallery. So no, where's the contract? If there was a contract, yes, but the contract was just for that show. If you're showing with somebody temporary, that is only for that section. So don't let anybody confuse you with, oh, well, you showed with me, so that means I represent you and you need to give me X amount for work that you sell online or in your studio. Be very aware. Okay, here are some other options. Now, a lot of these options didn't exist when I left undergrad, when I was in Trinidad, and I started my career 26 years ago. We had email, but if not in the email marketing we have now. Nowhere to advertise really. And also, you had no platform to show. The internet wasn't going. When I just left undergrad art school, there was no internet. It was now starting. So nobody had websites out and all of that. So I didn't have any of that. So, and I didn't know about fairs, festivals, all of these things. Now we have so much online platforms. Wow, online platforms out of the wazoo. Newsletters that you can send. As I said, your email list is gold. You contact your collectors one-on-one, okay? Websites, social media, art fairs, festivals, markets, right? These are great too. You could decide, well, maybe that's for me. Even these peer-to-peer sessions, I saw that there was somebody who gave a presentation on art fairs and festivals and what you should do and what you shouldn't do and all the practices. Those are excellent. Go back and find something like that. If that kind of stirs you, if you like that, okay? Artist collectives and co-ops, as I said, some artist galleries do that. Grants, residencies, other ways of selling your work or going off and you know, we talked about grants. I did a presentation about that and how that can change your life. You know, we're here with New Bedford Creative that gave artists grants. So much you can do with an artist grant and make that build. Okay, I used an artist grant to open my own gallery, right? My own gallery where I sell my work, an artist-run gallery, running my own work, in charge of my own commissions, etc., things like that. Direct sales to collectors, through your studio, you have studio. We have here in New Bedford, open studios and people can come directly to the studios and buy from the collectors. Host your own art show. That is something people don't realize as well. You don't have to be, and I'm not saying bashing galleries, you know, I'm a gallery as well, and I do show other artists' work as well. That is not my main focus. I'm not a commercial gallery like that. But, you know, as an artist, I want you to know you have options. Think about it. So if a gallery, there's situations like this, and this has happened to me before, like a new gallery or a small gallery, and an artist is new, they want to show their work so badly. So the gallery is thinking, and these are galleries that are thinking of, you know, making money from the artist rather than from sales and collectors. And so many times you would see these new artists and the gallery would say things like, okay, so you need to get all of your family members and your friends and everything, everybody come out, invite everyone to this show and whatever. Many times when you see that, you get the opening, and this has happened to me, and we do really good. We almost sell out the whole show. But when you sit back, now they're taking 50% of everything you sell, and you sit back and you realize everybody who bought your work is a family or a friend, somebody where would their list? Where is their list of collectors? But they are very interested in you bringing all of your family and friends. Think about that, because if that's the case, guess what? You can rent a space. You can rent an empty storefront. You can rent, you know, an artist-run gallery that might give you a wall, and it will be a minimal amount. They're not taking it. All depends. Think about where you can rent. I know an artist who did that. There was an empty storefront right here downtown New Bedford, and they rented. They went to the landlord. They rented a space. They had put up all their work, and they had their own little gallery, and they ran it for like about 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and did well. They paid the one fee for renting it, and they kept their commission. So that is an option. Okay, I'm an artist, so I'm saying these things because these are things I had to learn and I had to pivot. I'm not a gallery, I own a gallery and I'm my own representation, but it's not in that form. I'm seeing myself as an artist. So we have options that I didn't think I had options before. I came out of school thinking, oh my gosh, the art establishment is there and I have to pander to it. It's only years after I realized, oh my gosh, that's such an awful feeling when you feel that you have to pander to anything the art establishment, they need to approve. They have to say, yes, you're approved. No, you're not approved. You're worthy. No. Who is telling you you're worthy and not worthy? You know you are, and you can sell your work on other platforms. You do not need permission. You don't have to wait and be discovered. I thought I had to wait and be discovered. And guess what? I wasted a lot of time beating down doors, getting rude remarks, or just door after door slammed in your face and waiting for me to be discovered. No, you can be proactive and you can do all of these things. And at the same time, a relationship with a good gallery, an honest gallery, a gallery where you are honest and they're honest, it can work. It's a beautiful thing. And if you can find it, definitely do it. So that is my presentation on gallery representation today. And to conclusion, artists should carefully consider these pros and cons and evaluate their individual needs and goals before pursuing gallery representation. Individual needs and goals. Your needs and my needs and all the other artists' needs are very different. Your goals are very different. You need to sit quietly and really think about, what is it I want? What is it that I want to achieve? And that is my presentation for today. Thank you for being here. And here are some ways you can keep in contact with me.
Excellent job, Allison. Appreciate that. We're going to jump right into the questions. The first question that's in the chat is there a standard time frame for gallery representation, 1 month, a year, etc.? If for longer periods, is there usually an out clause in the contract?
Yes. So it all depends on the agreement with the gallery. Some galleries don't want to lock you in for too long because they want to allow themselves to bring in somebody else. And some do. So it might be a year, it might be 3 years. It really doesn't. And sometimes it's just kind of open-ended, and then you just decide on what. And you have to be careful with that because I have had some open-ended ones. It's very free for them to just be like, bye,
wow,
no warning or anything. And so, yeah, pay very close attention to that, to the contracts and what you agree to.
Excellent. Somebody, Janice R had a pretty long question. It's like a multi-part, but we'll do our best to answer all of it. What they said was, thank you, excellent presentation and fabulous experience. 1, as a universally trained artist, but now disabled, mostly housebound at age 73, using an Uber ride, where do I start to sell my art?
Oh, okay. I would say like the options I gave you before, you can online, you can sell your work online, have a website. And another thing about it, with website, we get really bogged down by all the technicalities. When I started a website, I had to hire somebody to do it years ago. Now you can do your own, and there's some simple ones, they're one-page ones where you can have, images on it. Also with mobility in terms of, can you get out there? Can you get somebody to help you with showing your work at festivals? So if it's mobility wise and you cannot be out and about, is there somebody who you trust who could show your work in certain places? But I would say, online, it's not going anywhere. And we saw that with the pandemic, because before I never sold many works online at all. So I had an ability to buy online on my website and nobody was buying. And I still had my studio and I had my gallery, and people would ask, oh, I saw this on your website, but they would come to the gallery to buy. And it was during the pandemic where something switched, and people, because they were home and they wanted to buy, and I started to sell online for the very first time. And it was a wonderful feeling. And so, you know, that has slowed down since things opened up, but it's still a possibility. And you can still, I still sell online, not as much as during that time, but it opened the door for a lot of people realizing that, oh yeah, I can buy online. Some people prefer that. People are still not really, they're still hesitant with going out and about. So there are really ways, and you can look up online different ways that you can sell your work, or you can try and get your work out there.
Excellent.
And I would add for Janice, it sounds like she is in a very artistic community, that I would ask her community for recommendations as well.
The next part of that question was, when it comes to contract reading, do you pay a lawyer or per service, or do you have to pay a retainer, Alison?
Well, I I have a couple lawyer friends, so I was able to do that. It's so funny that when I just came out of undergrad, and I was very determined to be in the art world. So sometimes you would look back at your younger self and be like, how was you so brave? I went and called all of the top artists in Trinidad, like mentors, and wanted to meet with them, visit them, pick their brains and whatever. And you'd be amazed that so many of them said yes. Yeah, like some of the top. And I remember being friends with these mentors. These are my mentors. And one of them said, you need to have, these are the three friends you need to have. You need to have a lawyer, you need to have a doctor, and you need to have a realtor or whatever. And I thought it was just so funny. But it was this, at the same time, my friend was in law school. So I'm like, okay, I'm all set. But I remember I have my friend look through some of my things. Okay. So if not, there are people who would, you could probably go online and search, and there might be some who do pro bono for artists and stuff like that. So you just ask around. There will definitely be somebody who can take a look at it, because I know that is going to be expensive, but we have ways around. We have our community and connections where you can ask, and I am sure somebody will know someone who would love to help an artist, and just, you know, a quick look through, because for them it's quick.
Excellent. There, I think the last question had to do with the price and how much that might range, right? Because that's always something that ranges from place to place, person to person. But I don't see any other questions in there regarding the session. Does anybody want to come off of mute and then ask a question?
I do. I wrote in the chat, hi.
Hey.
I wrote that I don't frame my artworks anymore when I'm in juried shows, because people have their own preferences of how. And that occurred to me when my own daughter-in-law liked a piece of mine, but she wanted it certainly to be set in. And I was doing gold with the matting around it. And then I realized that people prefer to do their own. And also, when you're at a gallery, and what Alison said, that's really high, 50%. Some take 30, 40. But if you're framing, you're losing that money too, because you've paid for the frame.
Yes, definitely.
So
but
do you frame?
Yes. Okay. So, and this is one of my professors said this, you should not be going to high-end framers, like, you know, the custom framers, because that is going to be a lot of money. And most likely, the collectors will come, they love the work, they buy the work, and immediately that is the first thing that comes off the frame. Because, you know, believe it or not, people wanted to match their couch. People wanted to match their decor. You know, not everybody just will take it as it is. And I always remember my professor saying that, because why would you spend all of this money and hundreds of dollars? Sometimes it's even more than the art piece itself. So that is not smart, you know, a smart decision to make. And I've done it before to try and make a good impression. And it's really just hurt me in the end. I've lost so much money. So I do frame my work, but sometimes I use ready-made frames. You can get, because I believe the work, it should be presentable on the wall. It needs to be mounted if it's on paper. So you can't just like put up paper, unless, you know, sometimes if you have those prints or photographs, some artists find a really cool way of doing pins at the or maybe even magnets. Some are really sleek, but it's all about presentation. You have to present your work, because if you don't present it in a proper way, it's not going to sell, no matter how good the work is. So my question to you, when you say you don't frame your work, is this work on paper? Like, how do you exhibit
Canvas,
on paper?
canvas,
Okay,
canvas.
yeah. As I
But
do the
some,
same
but,
thing.
okay, sorry to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
some do need, like you say, ready-made, because it does enhance the painting. It
Yes.
does make it look better.
And
Yeah.
you know, I do a lot of work on canvas too. I love working on canvas, but I really enjoy paper. I love working big on paper, but framing paper, like you have to be practical in certain things. So sometimes I do buy ready-made frames, and I buy like cheaper ones. There's a website online that I've gone to, and you can get artist quality frames for your canvas. You know, those, what is it called again? Floater frames. So they don't cover any part of the canvas. It's almost like you see a little kind of space all around. Very simple. My works are very busy, so I like simple frames. But you can go, there's a website online called pictureframes.com. And I've had some, and they're professionally, you know, they're quality. You're not going to take ones that are flimsy and falling apart or cracked or whatever. So I got some really nice wooden ones that I just pieced together. It comes with the hardware and whatever. But I'm really saying, I don't think you should go to a custom framer and spend that kind of money. And so a lot of my work on canvas, and I try and get the canvases with a nice thick edge, which kind of comes off of the wall. It gives it a really professional feel. You don't have to frame it. And a lot of people see it like that and they're like, oh, I'm not framing it. Or if they want to frame, they will get their own framer to do like a floater frame or something. But I'm very aware in terms of like cost. Yeah.
So also, if I could share, there's Dollarama here in Montreal, and it's like your dollar stores or Dollar Tree or whatever. And for smaller pieces, you could get some nice frames for $4 and $5.
True. Yeah.
And,
once
and
they
if,
look presentable and you could, you know, you mount it nicely.
yeah,
If they're warped or they're looking, you know, shabby,
no.
you don't want that. But if you can get, you can sometimes find some good quality ones.
I wanted to add to this. For my first pieces that I drew that I felt were worthy of framing, I walked over to my Walgreens and grabbed 3 white frames, and they matched. So it just kind of worked out, and they were really nice because it was glass and there was some depth to the wood, right, to the framing. So it looked like the picture sunk in a bit. So it gave it some space. But I walked right over there and they looked so good. I hung them up right away. I was like, these are for me. But yeah, you'd be surprised as to where you could go get framing. But if you do want to get some high-end stuff, I know in New Bedford, there is something called the Art Box, and they on Union Street, and they do custom framing.
Yes, that's new, right?
Yeah, it's very new that I've noticed.
Yes, yes. So there are some custom framers and they're reasonable. And, you know, I have done custom framing like for specific shows, or if I want, you know, but it's something that I'm not doing a lot in the gallery because you really have to think of your cost. And that really is the first thing collectors change. That's right away. Sometimes it's good quality frames I got from a framer and they would still take it off. But I've had some good collectors who took off the frame and they were like, would you like, they gave me back the frame. So they paid for the painting. They're like, we're going to choose it, but would you like to use this for another painting? I'm like, yes. So sometimes you get collectors, you know, and that's why you hold on to them, you know. So.
Anyone else with any questions, you could just take yourself off of mute and join the discussion. Going once, twice. The last bit that I'll add was I used to watch this TV show called How I Met Your Mother. One of the characters was named Lily Aldrin. She was a painter in this show. She sold her artwork. She sold it for like $600, this beautiful frame. So she went to go follow up with the people she sold it to, and they only kept the frame.
Oh no.
The frame was beautiful. Yeah, they had only kept the frame, so all her artwork was in the trash. And I always thought about that. So you started speaking of frames. It was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, that episode of How I Met Your Mother. Okay. We
Oh,
get back to
I
my
hope that
script.
doesn't happen. Yes.
No, right, that would be terrible. Good job picking frames if it does happen though. So I wanna thank you all for your time this afternoon. This was a great session. I'd also like to thank Alison Wells once again for their hard work. This is one of their many peer-to-peer sessions. You can find these peer-to-peer sessions online. I would also like to thank our funder, the City of New Bedford, for making this possible. Please be sure to visit our website, newbedfordcreative.org, to join our free creative directory. This is the list that we use to promote on our social media throughout the year. Make sure you to add your events, gallery exhibitions, or more to our calendar page that is linked to South Coast Today. We want our creatives to excel, and we are here to help. We have plenty of peer-to-peer sessions coming up. Please join us for our next session, which is next Tuesday from 1 to 2 p.m. And next Tuesday happens to be August 6th from 1 to 2 p.m. And the session is called Planning Strategies for In-Person and Online Meetings, Small and Large Events with Paula Robinson Deere. And I'm sure that we're going to put that link right in the chat. Lastly, the recording of today's session will be available on our YouTube channel, as I mentioned previously, and it'll be there within the next week. And you can find us on YouTube by typing @New Bedford Creative. We should pop right up. I want to thank you all once again. Have a great day. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Bye.